Hello, dear listeners. Namaskar. Please join me in offering our humble tributes to one of the greatest leaders of independent India, Shri Kartik Oraon. Today, that's 29th of October, is his 99th birth anniversary. This great leader's entire life and his career was invested in the development of the tribal communities. He primarily emphasized on the protection of the constitutional safeguards that have been provided to the tribal communities by our constitution makers. I am Vivekanand. I am currently teaching in Shamlal College of Delhi University. I have studied in Jawaharlal Nehru University. I originally come from a very small village called Kukametta from the Bhamragat Tahsil of the Gadchiroli district in the state of Maharashtra. My area is primarily inhabited by the individuals belonging to one of the particularly vulnerable tribal groups called Madhya Gond. Today, on the occasion of 99th birth anniversary of Shri Kartik Oraon, I have prepared a very small presentation which I am sharing with you through the means of my YouTube channel. So let me share that small presentation to know about the life and the work of this great leader who spent all his life for the development of the tribal communities and also to protect the constitutional benefits which have been extended to the tribal community. So he was born on 29th of October in 1924 in the month of Kartik, and therefore he was named as Kartik. He was born to Jairao Rao and Birsu Rao, belonging to the Kuruk tribe of Jharkhand. And he was born and reared up in the village called Karaunda Litoli in Gumla district that comes in the Jharkhand state today. Initially, that was the part of Bihar. Talking about his education, he completed his high school in 1942. Thereafter, he completed his intermediate education from Science College, Patna. After that, he did his bachelor's of engineering from Engineering College, Patna. And he wanted to specialize in engineering, in the stream of engineering, and for that purpose, he went to Royal College of Science and Technology, Glasgow, and also he studied in Batistara College of Technology. They are part of London University. After completing his education in the in the stream of engineering, he also enrolled himself at Bar at Law in Lincoln Inn College in London. After completing all his education, he worked with different organizations in England, and he was responsible to design a world's largest automatic power station for the British government in 1959. That power station still functions, and presently that power station is called as Hinkley Nuclear Power Plant. But there was always a calling and he craved to come back to his motherland and contribute to its development. So he came back and he joined Heavy Electrical Corporation in the capacity initially as assistant engineer, went on to become deputy engineer and then chief engineer. He also designed a building of the Birsa Agricultural University, and also he developed the design of the central library of that university. Now, let's talk about that was the primary introduction, how he, where he was born up, where he studied. We must have by now known and understood that he is, even those times, he was the highly educated person in India. See, he had studied in engineering not only in India but also in London. Then he also had studied bar at law in Lincoln Inn College, London, and so he contributed to the development of Bharat in terms of his skills and education that he had earned over a period of time, and also when he saw the plight of the tribal people, he decided to plunge into politics. He decided to plunge into social work. Well, there is one particular incident which is very important to note over here. When the Bhudan movement started by Vinoba Bhave, that movement essentially aimed at taking lands from the landed people and distributing that land to the landless people. So, through this movement, a lot of land was being acquired or being bought from the tribal individuals. So, Shri Kartik Oraon was concerned about it. He was of the opinion that tribal land should remain in the hands of tribal. So, therefore, he collaborated, or he talked to the then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi ji, and got the act passed. And through that act, it was ensured that the tribal land would not go to non-tribal person. That land will remain with the tribal people themselves. Today also, we know those who are interested in the tribal affairs and read and or somewhere involved in the tribal policies, we know that a non-tribal person cannot buy tribal person's land. So we can say that he was one of the pioneering figures in relation to the protection of the tribal land. He also struggled relentlessly for the establishment of the Birsa Agricultural University at Ranchi, as I mentioned earlier. He was also instrumental in the creation of the tribal subplan. The tribal TSP, we all know, when we have lot of schemes and the funds are less, then those schemes are supported by the tribal subplan. This is the scheme of the government of India. There are because he plunged into politics in 1962, and he was the aviation minister, and he served in various committees, parliamentary committees. But then there are two important things in this regard. Uh, his work in relation to the development of the tribal communities. The two important committees we need to mention over here. He was the deputy chairman of Chota Nagpur and Santal Paraganas Autonomous Development Authority. He served on that committee from 1972 to October 1977. So he worked for near about 5 years of time. And also he was the member of the committee on the welfare of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. He worked on that committee from 1973 to 1975. His most important and significant contribution, in my opinion, is he was the member of the Joint Parliamentary Committee constituted by the Parliament of India to look into the constitutional benefits, to whom the constitutional benefits should go and to whom they should not go. And the Joint Parliamentary Committee, of which he was one of the important members, in fact, he played a very significant part in that committee. And that committee submitted a memorandum to the government of India. And this memorandum was signed by 322 members from Lok Sabha and 26 members from Rajya Sabha in 1967. So that committee was constituted in 1967. And this committee primarily recommended the delisting. What that delisting means, we will talk about that as we go on discussing these issues. So the JPC, which was constituted in 1967, which submitted its recommendation in 1969, very categorically in clause 2A maintained that notwithstanding anything contained in the parliament in paragraph 2, no person who has given up the tribal faith and has embraced either Christianity or Islam shall be deemed to be the member of scheduled tribes. Means what? A person who has given up his tribal faith and has converted to either Islam or Christianity should not be given the benefits meant for the tribal communities. Now, this was not in vacuum, or this was not in segregation, or this was not discriminatory. Such a recommendations were given initially, the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Order 1950. Such an amendment was made to that order in 1956, and the recommendation was made that time, and in the clause 3, it was maintained, notwithstanding anything contained in the paragraph 2, no person who professes a religion different from Hindu or Sikh religion shall be deemed to be the member of scheduled caste community. Means what? Any person who has given up his Hindu faith. When we talk about in parliamentary terms, the Hindu faith, it includes the followers of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and the Sikh religion. So if an individual belonging to scheduled caste community, if that individual is following Hindu or Sikh religion, then he or she is entitled to the constitutional benefits, for example, reservations meant for the scheduled caste communities. And if that person has converted to any other religion apart from Hindu and Sikh religion, then that person would become automatically ineligible. So this provision was made in 1956 by making an amendment to the 1950 scheduled caste order. So the Joint Parliamentary Committee, which was constituted in 1967, which we talked about just now, which presented its recommended, also made similar kind of recommendations that stated that notwithstanding anything contained in the parliament in paragraph 2, no person who has given up tribal faith or has embraced either Christianity or Islam shall be deemed to be a member of any scheduled tribes community. Why this recommendation was made by the JPC that was constituted in 1967? We also need to look at some of the parameters uh, that define the scheduled tribes or an individual belonging to the scheduled tribes. So there were some parameters. Some of the most important parameters are the geographic isolation, their shyness in contacting the other people from the villages and the urban areas, and also their historical backwardness because of their geographic isolation, because they lived in forests and hills, lived in isolation for such a long time. So they have their own distinct culture, and that culture needs to be protected and preserved. Therefore, our constitution provided for in the fifth schedule and sixth schedule certain provisions that will protect their intangible cultural heritage, that include their faith, their ways of worship, their rituals, and their traditions and culture in particular. So, any person who has converted to Christianity or Islam will not adhere to their ways of worship, their faith, their traditions, their culture, their rituals, because automatically, owing to their conversion to other religions, they have given up their faith, they have given up their rituals, they have given up such such culture which is peculiar to them. Therefore, JPC provided for such a recommended that any person who has converted either into Christianity or Islam and has given up their tribal faith, that person should not be entitled to the constitutional safeguards or benefits, for example, reservations which are extended to them. So the that was the recommendation. And as I said, it was not in vacuum. Such a provision has been made in terms of the scheduled caste communities. So therefore, this was supposed to be applicable to the individuals belonging to the tribal communities also. But the parliament did not accept these recommendations, and the recommendations became null and void sort of. So what are the repercussions of this? The repercussions of this is that we know those of us who are interested into the tribal affairs, we must have heard about punctual policies, which was designed by Nehru and his advisor on in relation to the tribal affairs, Varier Alvin. They sort of developed the policies. Varier Alvin, in particular, sort of developed the policies which created conducive atmosphere for the conversion of the tribal communities in northeastern parts of Bharat. They converted on a massive number after independence than they converted prior to independence. I must draw your attention to one of the reports that was published in the 2011 by a center called Center for Policy Studies. It's an independent think tank. In their report, they quite categorically maintained that states like Mizoram, Manipur, and Nagaland have now become almost entirely Christian. They have given the data that the Christian population among STs in Mizoram is more than 90%, Then in Manipur and Nagaland, more than 97% and 98% respectively. So such is the state of affairs when it comes to the protection of the tribal faith. Why do we should, why do, or what is the need of stopping tribal people from converting to other religions? The need for that is that once they have converted either into Christianity or Islam, in that case, they have given up their tribal faith, and therefore they have become alienated from their tribal faith, their culture, their traditions, their ways of worship. Now, there is an argument that there is a conversion which is taking place in Hinduism also. Therefore, if some of them write Hindus, then they should also become ineligible from the constitutional benefit. Let's understand that there is a no concept called conversion in the Hindu community. And what is the distinctness of the tribal faith and tribal culture or tribal traditions? Most of some of these, the British officers or British people, policymakers, they said that they are the animists, and therefore by 1911 they were called as Adivasis, and other such words were assigned to them: animists, nature worshippers. But the entire Hindu community residing in urban areas and also villages, they also worship the nature. So in that sense, they are animist by the nature of their worship and by the rituals, the practices that they follow. For example, and then this fact was supported by some of the British officers. I would like to name two of them here. J. Benz, he was the census commissioner, and in his report, which he submitted in 1881, he said that every stratum of Indian society is more or less saturated with animistic conception. And then there is another British census commissioner, Herbert Risley. He also states that animism more or less transformed by philosophy, and no sharp line of the demarcation can be drawn between Hinduism and animism. So they understood it that uh, the Hindu community and the tribal community both are animists. Their ways of worship, their ways of rituals are quite similar to each other. And then there is no concept called conversion in Hinduism. And therefore, this idea that they're animists and the people dwelling in villages and urban areas are not animists, and therefore there is a distinction. And more importantly, there is no need to convert to avail themselves of the benefits which are extended to them by the constitutional method. In Hinduism, if they call themselves Hindus, there is no prescribed method that they should offer their prayers in such particular ways. The tribal communities are all free to follow their own ways of practice. Therefore, we have in Hinduism called Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. We haven't said that this is a particular way and you must offer your prayers in this particular way, then only you will reach to God. So this entire notion is just a falsehood which has been coined, which has been shaped in the form of narratives and which has been fed. And certain antisocial elements are harping on this fact, which is absolutely debunkable. We must debunk that idea. Therefore, today, that's on 29th of October, certain concerned individuals, they have come together and they formed an organization called Janajati Suraksha Manch in 2006. And these individuals belong to the tribal community itself. So they are gathering in lakhs and lakhs of numbers in Nashik, in Varanasi, in Purnia, in Bihar. So these people coming together in all these three places and various other places also, and they're stating that we are in dire need of protecting our culture, our ways of worship, our rituals. But we have been discriminated against due to we haven't converted, because we haven't converted to other religions, primarily Christianity. As I said, there is a total or absolute conversion or near to 100% conversion in most of the northeastern states. The central India is also likely or vulnerable to such conversion activities. There are hundreds of evangelical missions and other, faith also. Islamic conversion is also taking place. That's happening, and if that goes on unchecked, or there is no check at all on that, uh, this practice, then the entire tribal community stands in the danger of losing their faith, losing their culture, losing their intangible cultural heritage. Therefore, as I said, in Nashik and in Purnia and in Varanasi, people in lakhs and lakhs of number came to asking for their justified demands. Shri Kartik Oraon was quite insistent on the fact that the individuals who have converted to other, who have given up the tribal faith and have converted to Christianity or Islam should not be extended to the reservation benefits. And as I said, the religion data census of 2011, which was prepared and published by Center for Policy Studies, also has outlined that there is a systematic discrimination that's taking place against the non-converted tribal individuals, those individuals who have stayed with their original faith. So this segregation, this discrimination needs to be done away with. The constitutional benefits must be given only to the people who have stayed with their tribal faith, and therefore there is a need to support the demand which is being raised by the Janajati Suraksha Manch, which says that the individuals which have been listed in the fifth schedule and sixth schedule, as per the provisions of Article 342, they need to be delisted if they have converted to any other religion apart from the tribal religion or the tribal faith. So this is going to be one of the important issues, and this is going to be one of the burning issues. And this issue is not today's issue. This issue was raised up by Shri Kartik Oraon, and initially I introduced him as he was highly educated person who understood the benefit, who given up his very lucrative career and plunged into social and political activities to work for the development of his own people, and he spent his entire life in protecting their constitutional benefits. In his book, 20 Varsh Ki Kali Raat, the dark night of 20 years, he said how the converted tribal individuals have usurped in the constitutional benefits and deprived the individuals who have stayed with their tribal faith. And he kept on, despite the recommendations which were submitted to the parliament in 1969, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, its recommendations were rejected. In 1970 also, he again insisted on submitting such a bill and then getting the law passed, which could not be realized. But a lot of tribal individuals who want to take this dream of Shri Kartik Oraon forward, there are different organizations, in fact, they are coming up and demanding for such justifiable rights, justifiable act that needs to be passed by the parliament, and the converted individuals need to be put out of the list for the scheduled tribes. So they need to be delisted. That is the idea of the delisting, and this delisting is being demanded by the Janajati Suraksha Manch and a lot of the individuals who have stayed with their faith. There are other organizations, the Janajati Suraksha Manch, in different individuals and different organizations are celebrating the 99th birth anniversary of Shri Kartik Oraon, and these celebrations will go for the entire year till 29th of October 2024, that when we will mark his 100th birth anniversary. These all celebrations will go till that time. So we as concerned individuals also need to be aware, need to be cautious, need to be educated about this issue, and if we can, we need to spread the positive message in the society. Thank you so much for listening.